Crash and burn.
Hey everybody! So tonight I want to discuss FX2. Now, my God, if there was ever a movie that did not need to be sequelized, that would be FX. And for anybody that doesn't know, which doesn't make much sense because why are you watching the review for the sequel? But FX was an awesome movie that came out a few years prior to this, starring, again, Bryan Dennehy and Bryan Brown. And it was a beautiful one-off of a murder mystery that used more wit than violence, and its characters had more depth than your average sort of action murder mystery type film would have, and FX was perfect. And then they decided to sequelize it because it was sort of like a surprise success. And as a matter of fact, FX, the series, would exist for a few years in the 90s. I think it ran from like 93 to 96. So not only would the FX get a sequel, but it would also get a TV show that lasted a few years. Now this one here, this does what every sequel should do. It amps up everything that made the first movie special. You thought the effects were fun in the first one, and they were. Well, they have tripled down on that. The effects in this are insane. That clown that Rollie's working on, Bryan Brown's character. Basically what this is about, it sort of follows the plot of the first one in the sense that he, again, is working with the police, but this time the detective that he's working with happens to be the father of his girlfriend's son, who he lives with, and he is killed, and then it kicks off a whole other thing where Bryan Dennehy has to come back into it, and this time it's about the mob attempting to purchase some coins, some priceless coins that were stolen from the Vatican by this thief that they're trying to track, and he's in prison. They're trying to watch this guy who keeps reading the Bible to him, who turns out to be his son, of course, and they're attempting to follow him to lead them to the medallions. The cool thing about this movie is that there actually is a bit of a twist in that in the end, Rollie steals the coins from the mob, and Dennehy's like, dude, why'd you do that? And he's like, I don't know, oops. And he's like, yeah, but the mob was giving these back to the Vatican. And Rollie, Bryan Brown's like, oh. So the movie concludes with them dropping the coins off at the collection in the collection plate at a church in Italy, I believe. I think they're at the Vatican City, as a matter of fact. So that was kind of fun. But this, like I said, I mean, that clown in this, I mean, it's a fully animatronic clown. You put on the suit, and then when you do this, the clown does this or whatever. And I remember when I was a little kid and I saw this, I was so impressed with that. And then my parents were like, dude, that's probably just a guy in a suit. And it was like, fuck. There goes this fantasy I had of coming up with the 50 grand that you'd need to make this thing. Because, of course, 12-year-old, 13-year-old me could have pulled it off. God damn, a fucking dude in a suit. And my parents were right. There's no way that there was a bunch of robotics inside of that clown. There was a dude in that suit. So that was fun. Not to mention the fact that the apartment that Rollie lives in with that massive fish tank and that weird 80s looking steel pole elevator thing that they use to get up and down the apartment. It's like a loft kind of apartment. And this is the coolest apartment, like definitely one of the coolest apartments I've ever seen in a movie. The security guard in Good Times, I really liked his apartment too. That place had a really good look. But I love Rollie's apartment in this. The grocery store scene when he's being hunted by the hitman, who looks suspiciously a lot like Tom Cruise's hitman in Collateral, Michael Mann's 2004 film. And it's not crazy to think that Mann and Cruise would have possibly modeled Cruise's character in Collateral off this, just because FX2, whereas it wasn't as big of a success as the first one, it is still fairly well known. And the hitman, I mean, granted, Tom Cruise is a much better actor, but the guy has the same gray hair, that same sort of steely gaze, and I can't help but thinking of Tom Cruise's character in Collateral every time I see this movie. So maybe there is something to it. Who knows? What else did I want to talk about it? Oh, yeah, my God. When they kill Velez. Now, Velez, for anybody who doesn't know, she was Bryan Dennehy's sort of low-key love interest from the first movie. She works in the tech department at the cop shop. And he's always kind of hitting her up for information. She's really good with computers. Well, in this one, they decide to sort of actually get together. And they're going to take a trip to Jamaica. And to celebrate everything, Dennehy takes her out for what he says is the best Chinese food in the world. And she was picturing a restaurant, and it's this sort of like hot dog stand looking thing on the side of the street. And she's digging into the Chinese food, and she gets shot through the mouth. So uncalled for. First off, killing Velez was just not cool. I just thought that was just so unnecessary. And then shooting her through the mouth. That was just fucking cruel. Now, I will say too, I didn't so much love the score in the first one, but I absolutely love the score in this. I found the score in the first one, it's really classical, and it just too sweeping and too orchestral, and it just felt like it would have belonged better in Star Wars, not effects. But the score in this, the score fits. It's more like a 1980s sort of synth score. The score in this actually is somewhat reminiscent of the score from Romancing the Stone with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner and Danny DeVito. That's what it kind of reminds me of at times, and it just fits this movie so much better than the score did for the first one. I also have to say too that feeding the dogs hot dogs at the end, that's not cool, because those dogs, they're going to eat them all, and then they're probably going to die of a heart attack. I am, of course, discussing quickly there at the end when he is taking down the mob at the house, when he's blowing everything up and screwing over the mobsters using fun Hollywood effects. He traps the dogs at the Dobermans at the tennis court. Were they Dobermans? No, they weren't Dobermans. No, they weren't Dobermans. They were the other ones. The fucking Higgins had the dogs. Can't remember what they were. It doesn't matter. The Higgins dogs, Zeus and Apollo, pretty much, from fucking Magnum. He traps them in the tennis courts, and there's a bunch of hot dogs in there to keep them busy, and those dogs are going to die. That's not cool, Rollie. Not cool. But yeah, so I think, yeah, that was everything. I mean, I just absolutely loved that Bryan Dennehy was in this more. I felt that he didn't get enough screen time in the first one. So the fact that he comes into this pretty much right away, and him and Bryan Brown share the screen, and they have so much chemistry together. I'm sure I will discuss that further in my video that I do for the first FX. But that's where I'm going to leave it. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for, Jesus Christ, 7.5 minutes while I discussed FX2 from 1991. Like always, if you like this review, don't forget to do something nice for somebody. But most importantly, please don't forget that the world is actually a better place because you're in it. Like always, I'm getting out of here. Have a good night.